Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning for our latest Leaner and Greener webinar session. I'm Patricia Kingston and I'm the Corporate Events Officer at Tourism NI, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all along today. I know many of you have already joined us for some of our previous Leaner and Greener sessions, and today I'm delighted to welcome along Yosef Dvores from Veri Connect, who's going to be kicking off our Phase 2 series by taking a look with us at Northern Ireland's commitment to climate change and how you can apply that within your own business. Following the main presentation, we'll be having a short Q&A session with Yosef. So if you do think of any questions at all today, please be sure to pop those into the control panel chat box at any time during the session, and I'll pick up as many of these as possible at the end. So I've had a quick glance at the slides already today. I've had a sneak preview and I can confirm we've got a jam-packed presentation ahead of us. Over the course of the next hour or so, Yosef will be exploring the use of fossil fuels, renewable energy options, waste and pollution, all in the context of the tourism and hospitality industry. Lots to cover. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time now, and without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce Yosef Dvores. Good morning, Yosef. It's great to meet you and really looking forward to hearing what you have in store for us today. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Yeah, welcome everyone. And my name is Yosef. I'm from Canada originally. I'm an ecologist from the company Veri Connect. And yeah, I've for the past 8 years or so, I have worked in ecology, biodiversity monitoring, sustainability, and all around the world. And now I'd love to share my passion for the environment and work with communities and businesses on how we can address climate change and work on sustainability and biodiversity issues. So I'm very excited to chat with you guys about Northern Ireland's commitment to climate change. So today, as Patricia mentioned, I'll be talking about hospitality and fossil fuels, renewable energy, circular economy, and pollution. And then at the end, I'll go over a case study with you guys, which will be a great little template that you guys could use as well. Now, as you guys can see, there's a lot to cover. I could do, I actually do whole courses on each one of these topics. So it's a lot to jam into 1 hour, but I'll do my best to go over it all with you guys, and I'm sure you'll pick up a lot of useful bits along the way. And there will also be a useful toolkit that you guys can use at the end of the session, which will have further information on how you can implement actions towards climate change and sustainability and biodiversity. Okay, so I'd just like to kick things off with read this quote from the UN World Tourism Organization. So they define sustainable tourism as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. So as you can see here, it's important to note that it's all about sustainability, about current and future impacts. We're looking at not only environmental impacts, but also economic and social ones along the way. So this would be a great lens to view any sustainable actions that you partake in your business. So talking about hospitality and fossil fuels. Now, to put some context behind where we are now, a good fact is that if everyone in the world were to live like a UK citizen, or indeed a citizen of any first world country, the planet would already be about 3 degrees warmer. And we would need 3 planets of resources to sustain our way of life here. So this is an interesting fact to think about where we are now, because we don't want to be naive of our starting point. So it's important to note this from the get-go. And then you can see on the pictures to the right that even 0.5 degrees of difference makes a big difference at the end of the day. So really, to talk about fossil fuels or climate change, it's important to point out that the most important piece of policy to come out is the Climate Change Act, Northern Ireland, 2022. So the main target here is net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The targets to lead to that will be 48% reduction in net emissions by 2030, 80% renewable energy by 2030, and 70% of waste recycled. Now, in order to reach these targets, we're going to have carbon budget ceilings on emissions, and making sure all of this is done in a just transition that is based on equality. Now, I know a lot of people might view these targets and feel like they might be a little far-fetched, or that the government's not doing enough to get there, or our society isn't ready for these targets just yet. And I'm not here to make any promises on what the future might bring, but I do like to point out that these targets are well within reach, that it is possible. And if we all decided that we want to achieve these targets, we would definitely achieve them, that humanity has overcome bigger challenges in less time. And it's important not to just think that the government needs to make all the changes, that as a society, in our business, in our day-to-day actions, we can push towards achieving these targets. So looking at Ireland's emissions, we can see where we are here in the business sector. Most of the emissions understandably come from agriculture and transport. So this pie chart is useful to put into context. Now, fossil fuels, going over some basics here. Of course, what are they? Things like coal, oil, and gas, things that took millions of years to be created deep underground. And of course, we need alternatives. They're going to run out, and they're obviously changing the climate at a shocking rate. We're pumping millions of kilograms of carbon out of the ground and into the air. So this is going to have great effects on our climate. And obviously, what is the problem? Well, you have all these emissions. We have devastation from mining, a lot of pollutants, which I'll come back to at the end, but also, not just environmental impacts, but, global supply shortages that we're seeing, which lead to fuel poverty. And at the end of the day, it's not renewable, which means it's not sustainable. Okay, this is all about sustainability, like I said, living in a way now that we can sustain for future generations. So comparing these two pie charts on this slide, we can see energy consumption from 1990 and 2021. What's important to note here is that coal and oil has drastically gone down. Electricity has gone up, bioenergy and waste have gone up. So we're seeing huge shifts in our overall energy consumption. So, it's expected that we've already seen a huge shift, that we're going to continue seeing a huge shift, and we have to adapt our ways of life, our business within these shifts. But even more promising is that the energy that we get for electricity. So in 2019 was the first time renewable energy surpassed fossil fuels for energy for electricity, with 48.5% from renewable sources and only 43% from fossil fuels. Now, in 2022, it was up to 51% renewable sources. So over half of our energy for electricity in the UK was from renewable sources. So we see this trend fast moving towards renewable sources. So we want to, again, support that and go towards those targets and invest in them as well, right? Because it is all, at the end of the day, a big investment to go towards sustainable energy. And as you can see here, investment really in energy industry has gone down for oil and gas, including coal. It's gone up for electricity. So we want to keep investing here as we go on in the tourism sector and the hospitality sector. And a good way to assess your own usage for fossil fuel energy, because we haven't gone 100% to renewables yet, so we still use a lot of fossil fuel energy. So it's really important to assess where your company is using fossil fuel energy. And a good way to do this is through benchmarks. And so you can benchmark your usage in relation to businesses in your own sectors to compare different things like electricity, heating, and transport. So benchmarks and other actions that you can take to reduce fossil fuel energy usage will be highlighted in your toolkit that you'll get at the end of the session. So moving on to renewable energy here in contrast. So renewable energy, by definition, it's not using a finite resource faster than nature can replenish it, right? It's renewable, it's sustainable. It's derived from natural sources, you know, it's from abundant sources all around us, like wind and energy. Renewable energy produces much lower emissions, but not zero. You know, there's no such thing as 100% clean energy. Certainly some energy is cleaner than others, but we have to always remember that minimizing our energy usage is the best way to minimize our impact from that happens from energy. Okay, but definitely renewable energy is the greener, lower emissions avenue there. Also, it generates jobs and is becoming cheaper and cheaper. That's why we're seeing more and more of it around. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's all about not producing emissions faster than the planet can reabsorb them, which is what got us in this predicament in the first place. Now, renewable energy usually comes from onshore wind, offshore wind. We're seeing that grow more and more. But you could also have things like microgeneration, where you can have microgeneration of sustainable energy, such as little wind turbines or hydro stations or your own solar PV. Renewable energy can come from anaerobic digesters, things like biofuel. We see more and more electric vehicles. More businesses are moving to electrifying their fleets. Heat pump systems are very useful for many people, as well as district heating systems. So there's many ways that you can apply renewable energy goals within your own business. So renewable energy is sustainable, it's self-reliant, and because of that, it's resistant to fuel poverty and global shortages. So it's sustainable, again, not just from an environmental point of view, but from an economic one and definitely a social one. And at the end of the day, it'll save you money by investing. So here we'll take a look at low carbon sources that you can see there on the left, from nuclear, wind, solar, hydro, bioenergy, and heat pumps and such. And then on the right in the graph, you can see that the proportion of UK energy supplied from these low carbon sources is steadily going up. Now we can see a little bit of a dip there, but it has continued to go up. That is likely caused from the pandemic that we had. So we can see the trend here, and that's really important to note, that the main points here is that we're seeing this big shift in the way we're getting our energy, in the way we're doing business. So it's really important to adapt before we get left behind, before consumers are looking at this, investors are looking at this, and other businesses. So we don't want to get left behind in terms of our energy sources or sustainability in general. Now, you can't really talk about energy without highlighting the Path to Net Zero Energy document. And this kind of all started back in 2010, where the Strategic Energy Framework was published, and the landmark event in June 2019, when UK became the first country to commit to 100% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And then shortly after this, we saw that in December of 2021, the Northern Ireland Energy Strategy, the Path to Net Zero Energy, was published by the Department of Economy. And I would really like to highlight this and suggest to everyone that they take a look at this document, see what's most relevant to them. It's very accessible for the general public, and it's a good document with lots of useful resources to use. Now, within the strategy, you'll find 5 main principles here. So it's not all just about just having no emissions. Okay, these 5 principles outline the overall roadmap to achieving this target. So really, it's all about placing you at the heart of the energy future. So here we see that it's about society as a whole. We see again that social aspect of it, affordability, fairness being key considerations. We see that to grow the green economy. So again, economic sustainability as well. Okay, new jobs, growing skills are also very important. Doing more with less. I'll come back to this idea with circular economy. We'll need to set clear targets and standards, and really, it says it all. Do more with less instead of constantly taking more from the planet and wasting it. Obviously, replace fossil fuels with renewable energy. That's huge there. So no getting away from that, but also to create a flexible, resilient, and integrated energy system. Okay, so talking about smart energy systems, digitized systems, and it's all about enhancing the security of the supply. I'd also like to highlight this really important dashboard that you guys can use to get a clear action plan, and there's an interactive dashboard there. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to go over it with you guys, but a link to this great resource will be in the toolkit for you guys as well. And I talked about investing in sustainable energy, and to make it easier, or to give some guidance, the Path to Net Zero strategy also published 7 issues of this e-zine relating to funding opportunities. So I highly recommend taking a look at that. And again, in your toolkit, you'll find other great resources that businesses can use for investing in renewable energy. Talking about renewable energy, you often hear about this payback period. It's all about the investment, and the payback period is simply the amount of time it takes to recover the cost of an investment. So, you will have to pay more upfront, but in the long run, you are saving money. Not only is it the right thing to do from a social aspect, from an environmental aspect, but it is also a good thing to do from an economic point of view. Next, I will talk about the circular economy, and this is probably by far the most important aspect of sustainability, and the way we need to move towards this kind of layout. Okay, because really there is no other way around it, and to understand the circular economy for a sustainable future, we have to understand the linear economy first. So the linear economy is basically what we see around us for the most part today, where we have a take, make, waste system. So this is an economy where you extract finite resources, you make products, and then they're thrown away after. They're moved in one direction. So if nothing else from the session, everyone can understand that being in a linear system, in a finite world that revolves over on circular systems, be it the water cycle, the carbon cycle, the nutrient cycle, humans have decided that we are going to have a linear system, and clearly constantly extracting and using and throwing away isn't isn't an equation for a sustainable future. So we need to turn this around. So the linear economy, and it's not to say that the linear economy is all bad. You know, we owe our thanks to the linear economy to the way of life that we have today. Okay, historically, there's been a lot of positives. It brought millions out of poverty. You know, population soared, mass production of goods and food, and really, it's time of abundance because of the linear economy, because of the industrial era. But clearly, we're seeing this take its toll on the environment. And like I said, constantly extracting, using, and throwing away in a world that's finite and that has 8 billion people is not a recipe for a sustainable future. So really, we must all work towards this circular economy. And we're seeing these impacts of this linear economy because half of all greenhouse gases and more than 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress comes from resource extraction and processing. So if most of the damage, nearly all the damage is coming from the extraction, the best way we can fight towards a sustainable future is by keeping things circular and to minimize the extraction of resources. Wasted materials. So to talk about circularity, we need to look at how much it really is being wasted now and how to prevent all this waste. So over 100 million tons of materials are used in Ireland every year. Much of it is still valuable, but goes to waste. There's over 1 million tons of food wasted every year, a personal pet peeve of mine, because really there is no reason or rhyme for it, for such waste. So really we can all take actions to prevent this, whether it's at home and definitely in our businesses. Over 2/3 of plastic is not recycled. Repak's definitely improving these measures. And only 2% of material used in Ireland comes from recyclables compared to 12% in the EU. So clearly we need to support this in the products that we use within our businesses. So what is the circular economy? Well, this illustration depicts it quite clearly. We have raw materials coming in to the circular economy, and really starts off by designing it in a way that it can help circular economy, and then really throughout the whole process, production, distribution, and even though we might not be in the design or distribution or production of it, we're definitely in the consumption phase of it. So here we need to think more about what we use, what we reuse, how we repair it, and then it's going to go into collection and recycled, and of course there'll always be some residual waste. So what is the circular economy? So you can think of things like libraries. Anytime you get anything fixed or serviced, like a plumber or electrician, anytime you repair any of your own clothes, again looking at, or anytime you fix anything like a piano, or you get things refurbished, you're fixing your car, you know, anytime things, a big part of circular economy is not owning things and just borrowing things and having collective ownership of it, like cars and bikes and scooters. And things like antiques, or charity shops, or things like renting equipment. So these are all ideas, things of circular economy that we're already seeing out there. So the main three principles here are designing out the waste. And again, we might not have a lot of, we might not be in the process of designing products, but we can definitely support buying products that are designed to minimize waste. Okay, we could definitely keep things in use, and we can definitely use things that help regenerate natural system. Okay, so these three main principles that you see in front of you are all ones that we can support in what we use, what we buy, and what we invest in. So things like we want to buy as much things that are eco-designed. So things that are eco-designed would have an increased lifespan, increased recyclability, reusability, refurbishment, replacing materials with more sustainable materials. We're already seeing this all over the place, and a lot of these ideas you'll find in the toolkit. They'll be highlighted there. Reducing weight of the product, biodegradable materials. Of course, we want to. These are the steps we want to. These are the things we want to look for in the products that we're buying within our businesses. So there we see the benefits of eco-design. Again, not just is it better for the environment, but we have happier customers, market differentiation, and really higher quality products. So you could save money at the end of the day, and more sustainable industries, of course. So some main goals there of the circular economy strategy, which is really the main document that you would like to be looking at when learning more about the circular economy, is the circular economy strategy for Northern Ireland. It's actually still open for consultation, I believe. It's published now, but you have a read through and you can join in on the consultation. And really the target is that by 2050 have their material footprint. And really those are the principles, saying that it's all about systemic change, designing out the waste, managing resources, and stimulating system change, and investing. So we definitely look at these aspects and think about how these aspects can be looked at through our own companies. Now, a big part of a circular economy would be the waste hierarchy. Okay, so even we often hear about recycling, but we have to even take some steps back, because the biggest thing is to rethink, redesign things, reduce, and then reuse things as much as possible. Only then do we get to the stages of recycling and material recovery. So of course we want to reuse as much as possible, reduce as much as possible, reduce harmful products. Really, you can think big there, whether it's reducing your fleet or reducing things within your business. And there'll be plenty of examples for you in the toolkits there. So repair and refurbishment, upcycling the things. Really, the possibilities are endless. You could always visit repairmystuff.ie. They have things all over the place to repair or refurbish things. You want to reuse, again, there's plenty of ideas there for ways that we can reuse things in our business, whether it's packaging or paper or ink cartridges, or donating instead of throwing away. And then recycling things from all aspects, be it organic recycling, making sure you locate your bins strategically so that your guests can also be part of this recycling program. And really throughout the whole thing, you want to make it a big part of your business. So next I'll talk about pollution. Now, it's hard to overstate the impact of pollution. It is definitely one of the biggest global killers, affecting 100 million people in the world, similar to diseases like malaria or HIV. But not only does it really impact people, but it's also one of the biggest killers of biodiversity. Okay, it harms people, wildlife, and the environment. On top of all that, it's bad for business. Okay, more and more people don't want anything to do with a business that is a big polluter, right? And we're seeing more and more of that. And that's why when we look at hospitality and tourism, where we see that more and more people are looking at eco-tourism or eco-hospitality, and they're moving towards that. So again, not only is it bad for people, wildlife, and environment, but also not very good for the business. And you might not think that, you know, we have any impact on pollution, that, you know, we don't really pollute much like other places in the world, but yet still, even air pollution, over 1,300 premature deaths per year in Ireland are caused because of air pollution. So yeah, a lot of cardiovascular issues, but also issues from like global warming that's caused by air pollution. And the biggest impact would be domestic solid fuel burning and traffic. So we can definitely play a role in that. And there'll be other examples in the toolkit in ways that we can minimize our pollution, our air pollution. Looking at water quality, our rivers and lakes are really the lifeblood of the planet. There's no getting away from it. I'm sure we've all heard that water is life at the end of the day, yet half of Irish rivers are in unsatisfactory condition. And you might not, looking at your local river, you might not think that it's polluted, but that's probably because it hasn't been in a pristine state in recent memory. Okay, and in Northern Ireland, the biggest impacts would be things like agriculture, untreated wastewater discharge, runoff from forestry and roadways. So businesses can definitely impact water pollution. Minimizing water use is a good way to minimize water pollution. Really, where you get your food, what you do with it, how you look after your outdoor areas, be it pesticides or fertilizers. These are all ways that you can affect pollution, and these will be highlighted again in the toolkit. So even land pollution. So most of the land pollution we see is caused illegal dumping, and really by producing less pollution and, you know, putting giving guests and other customers less waste, you will definitely have a big impact on pollution. You want to, again, have bins around your property, but yet even producing too much rubbish in the first place takes a toll on the planet. And even if it's disposed of legally, it still oftentimes finds its way back to polluting the environment. Okay, and the growing rate of rubbish is really unsustainable. And really, you can start to see how all these different aspects start to tie into one another, be it circular economy, renewable energy, or pollution. So you want, you know, of course, everyone can do their part in preventing pollution, whether it's supporting groups, so having outreach programs in your local communities to do cleanups and to fight for clean air. So really, all the actions that you're going to be taking, all these climate actions that you're going to be taking, you want to signpost them to your customers, to your communities, because this way not only are you helping the environment, but you're also helping business, because more and more people are looking for eco-tourism and eco-hospitality. And another way, even that might not be thought of quite often, is light pollution. Okay, so an example of this is that this starling murmuration are thriving again in Belfast after light pollution reduced. And really, light pollution can be quite detrimental to local biodiversity, be it bats or insects, even birds, as we can see here. So, you know, these are thousands of birds, if not millions of birds, that were really excluded from an area because of light pollution, and, you know, has huge effects on migratory patterns and a lot of different aspects of pollution that you can help with. So at this point, I also would like to highlight this funding for biodiversity program that there is. It's called Grow Wild's Community Program. It's a £2,000 grant to transform an urban space with native plants and to encourage wildlife and engage local community. So I'd like to highlight this. But it's more than just financial support. Important to note that looking for people who are keen to engage with all aspects of the program, from and again, looking at the 3 pillars of sustainability from a social point of view, environmental point of view, and economic point of view. So here I would like to talk about a case study, and this will be exemplar for ways that you can improve your business against economically and environmentally. So I'd like to play this video for you guys about the City Hotel in Derry.
With ever-increasing energy costs and consumption, we decided that we would need to take some stringent measures to try and cut that back. It was having a big impact, not just in our cost base and our finances, but also we realised that it was having a big impact on the environment. We spoke with the Carbon Trust, we spoke with Invest Northern Ireland, and with help and advice from them, we basically implemented a plan and a strategy to try and reduce our costs, reduce our energy usage and efficiency. A big part of making the changes was finding out what we used to begin with, so it was about monitoring and tracking the usage. Things like our fridges, our wine chillers, dishwashers, glass washers, they were all quite high energy usage. Our BMS, which is our building maintenance system, it's a computer controlled system which manages the heat levels and the water levels throughout the hotel in terms of heating and the flow rates. We introduced a new system by investing quite heavily in the BMS and redefining it, retraining the staff on how best to use it. That in turn has helped us reduce our costs by managing the system and managing the effects of it a lot more efficiently. We've saved 528 tonnes of carbon emissions per year. Our energy savings equate to around 58,000 per year based on the energy we used in 2006.
We do a lot of work out in the local environment. One of the projects that we're passionate about is protecting the bee population. Bees pollinate 2/3 of the food that we eat. Without them, our food would be very expensive and we wouldn't enjoy the variety of food that we have today. With this in mind, we have a little area on our 7th-floor garden, which we have plants there for the bees and the birds. And also in May we'll be planting the wildflower seeds. And we find it's important to actually stick to native wildflower seeds in order to improve biodiversity. We've been working along with RAP and the Green Tourism Business Scheme to help us achieve our targets. We were the first hotel to sign up for the Hospitality Food Agreement. We segregate our waste as much as possible. This allows us to separate out items that we can send to charity. For example, our cans go to a charity in Ballymoney called Can Recycling. We work along with River Ridge Recycling. They collect all our waste materials, our recycling materials, and they also send our food waste for compost. And because of them, last year we were able to achieve the zero waste to landfill, and we got the Gold Award from Let's Recycle. We got the Green Tourism Gold Star Award with the Green Tourism Business Scheme, and we got the highest score in the UK and in the hotels that they had in Ireland. We have a lot of companies here that actually, before they book the hotel, they want to find out your environmental credentials, and it's great when we have these accolades behind us, then it gives people trust in our product.
From the very beginning, we understood that we could never achieve any of this without the staff buy-in and commitment from them. And we started by basically training the staff on how they could save energy by simple things like turning off lights. But we had a lot of information sessions and education sessions with them, and we brought out outside agencies to help achieve that. As part of the commitment to your staff training, we have an induction process, a day one induction, and then a company orientation. Part of that process is making sure we instill in all new recruits that we are an energy efficient hotel and that we're committed to reducing energy costs, waste to landfill, and it becomes an integral part of their day one induction so they know from the very beginning what we're about and how we like to do things. Seeing the benefits from our energy usage and a reduction in waste to landfill have been hugely beneficial to the hotel, and we appreciate that they're also hugely beneficial to the environment. We've continuously cut our energy costs and our energy usage year on year, and our hope is to reduce our carbon footprint even further, that by 2020 we'll be at zero carbon footprint emission from the hotel.
Fantastic. So really a great case study from the City Hotel. And now I'd just like to go over some key points, highlight some key points that we saw in the video. So number one, measuring usage. That's what you're going to want to do first and foremost. So really, they knew they had to cut down. They saw the increased cost. They saw the increased environmental damage from their energy usage. So first things first, implemented a plan. Okay. Quoted there, big part of making changes was finding out what we're using. Okay, and that's where you want to be monitoring and tracking your usage. Things they mentioned there, like fridges, wine chillers, glass washers, might be different for each business, but again, you want to be measuring, monitoring, tracking, and implementing a plan to reduce your usage. Another key point that they mentioned there was like a building maintenance system that perhaps would be ideal for you guys. So using technology such as a computer control system to manage heat and water levels. So they mentioned they took investment. So oftentimes it is an investment, but an investment that pays off at the end of the day. That helps you save money, it helps you get more customers, and it helps the environment. In this case, it saved them 528 tons of carbon emissions, which equal to 58,000 pounds in savings a year. That was in 1 year that happened. So they also implemented biodiversity action to help native bees. They planted native species. They used their roof as an outdoor space more efficiently. And definitely, whenever I go, in any hospitality or tourism or really any business, I see that outdoor space can be used more effectively to encourage biodiversity. And biodiversity is hands down our biggest ally in fighting climate change. No two ways around it. So improving biodiversity helps reduce climate impact. And even as simple as implementing these little changes to help bees and birds and native species. And there's a free resource. There'll be many more free resources in the toolkit you guys will get as well. So they also talked about separating waste. So their cans go to can recycling. I believe they're under a different name now. They use River Ridge recycling, so food waste for compost to make sure that you're also composting your food waste. They got a zero waste to landfill award, which they display. They have the gold award from Let's Recycle, the gold star from Green Tourism, highest score in the UK. So these are achievements that they can display to their customers. And like they mentioned, their customers are very they're often looking for these kind of things to prove that the business is successful. So those are all things that you guys could look into. There'll be links for you guys as well for these different achievements that you guys could work towards. So they talked also about the staff buy-in, and quoted there, he said, we can never achieve any of this without staff buy-in and commitment. So that's hugely important, all right? Right from day one, right from the induction from day one, from the training, information and education session, that all the employees there understand that it is, they're a sustainable business, and they want to advertise that in a way. They want to show their employees, they want to show their communities that they're a sustainable business. So the whole orientation of the company is highlighted there. And he said also, instill in all new recruits that we are an energy efficient hotel and committed to reducing environmental impact. That's huge. That we don't often see that in our company orientation or in our training, but it's hugely important to have that staff buy-in. They also talked about collaboration, like RAP, Green Business Tourism Scheme, Hospitality Food Agreement. So these are all collaborations that maybe you guys could look into. It might benefit your company as much as it did City Hotel. And here, just to wrap things up about that, is that he said a lot of companies are actually, before they book, they want to find out your environmental credentials, okay? And it's great to have the accolades behind us. And these are all accolades that that I looked into, that they wouldn't be that hard to achieve. So working towards them and achieving them and having the accolades behind your businesses will also help you guys get more, it'll help you guys be a bigger example in your communities, get more clients and customers, and really a great example of how it's helping City Hotel and can help you guys as well. So now I'd just like to thank you guys very much for being a part of this session. I hope you guys learned a lot, and now I will answer any questions that you guys might have. Thank you very much.